Welcome back everyone. This is Mindy here today for Lawnfawn, and today's video we are going to be creating this magical little scalloped box card pop-up using the Shadow Box Rainbow add-on. I started out by stamping my images onto some of the white cardstock from Lawnfawn using the jet black ink, which is Copic friendly. I'm using images from A Little Sparkle and Fairy Friends. I thought the Fairy Friends were a great addition to these cute little fairies that are in the stamp set A Little Sparkle. And then I also had some flowers down in the corner I just thought would be a great addition to the scene that I'm going to create. Now I did speed up the coloring quite a bit just because these are fairly small areas to color. I didn't do a lot of shading. If I did, it was just two color blends. So I had a darker color and a lighter color, and I'm just adding a line of the darker color. I didn't blend out a lot. That is what I did with the fairies, and you could see I did stamp multiple ones of those little ones. And doing a little bit of the hair there, one color on the hair. They're so tiny, they don't need a lot. And I'm keeping these in kind of some rainbow colors. So the dresses, the wings, and you'll notice, or maybe had noticed, that on my unicorn, instead of using any grays, I actually used a light purple combo. Honestly, my grays are pretty dried out and I don't have refills for them. So that was my solution for my shadow areas of my unicorn, is to add, I think I used BV 0000, BV 000, and BV00, and I will list that on the screen too. That was for the body of the unicorn. So that's just another color combo you can use if you don't have any grays, or like me and they need to be refilled. Just another way to add some shadow areas to something that would maybe be white. Once I have all of the images colored in, I'm going to go ahead and use the coordinating die to die cut these out. The little fairies, you'll see I'll need to do that a few times to get all of those images. And then I'll put those off on the side. I'm going to continue on building up the rest of my elements for the card. So here I'm going to be doing my own stencil. I've done this plenty of times before. This time I'm doing it a little bit different. I'm using the Puffy Clouds border, and I have a piece of cardstock here. I think this was 5.5 by 5.5, and I placed those borders on the top and the bottom and just ran that through my die cut machine. So I can just turn this when I want to do some clouds, and since this is cardstock, I can use it again. This time I'm going to keep going. I'm going to die cut some more of those puffy clouds on the sides. Now if you were going to use this stencil on a 4.25 by 5.5 inch piece of cardstock, I wouldn't do all of the sides because it's not going to go across the whole length of your card. Maybe just doing two of the ends would work better, but I knew I was going to use this on a very small piece of cardstock, so I wasn't really worried about how long it was. Next, I'm going to create the elements for the actual box. So I'm using the Scalloped box card pop-up. I die cut that twice from some mermaid cardstock. Then I'm going to die cut out some pieces from white cardstock. This is going to be to decorate the side of my box. And these are also from the Scalloped box card pop-up die. I have the smaller square there, or rectangular at the bottom. These are going to be for the small flaps. And I did die cut out both of those rectangles. One of them I'm going to use as the backdrop. Here I'm using those puffy cloud inserts, and this is from the Shadow Box Card Rainbow add-on. I'm die cutting those out of some of the pixie dust cardstock so my clouds will be nice and glittery. And then this is also the rainbow that I'm die cutting from white cardstock. I do save that piece that I die cut it from, and that cuts out all of my pieces. Now instead of cutting these from multiple colors of cardstock, I'm going to create my own colored cardstock. So I'm using the lawnfawn ink pads. This first one is bubblegum, and I'm just lightly swiping across my rainbow piece. This is the biggest one, the first piece in the rainbow, and it does seem pretty bright right now. They do dry back a little bit, and they become some beautiful pastel colors. This next one is peach fuzz. That'll be my orange. And when you drag it across, you just want to go in one direction. Don't go back and forth because you will bend your cardstock. Then we have butter, and this will create just a really nice light yellow. I thought this would be the easiest way to do instead of having so many random pieces of colored cardstock. Next, I have celery stick, dragging that across my rainbow piece. And it just takes a few seconds to dry. And then my last piece, I'm using fresh lavender. I went with purple instead of the blue because my actual box card is going to be blue, so I wanted to get some purple in there. Now to help adhere this rainbow to my project, I'm going to take that piece we had die cut the rainbow from. I'm tracing it onto another piece of white cardstock. This is kind of going to be a base for me to glue my rainbow together. So I just trace that on there with a pencil. And then I can take my scissors and just cut that out. This cutting does not have to be perfect. It actually could be a little bit within the lines so that you don't have anything overhanging. And then once I have this cut out, I can start the assembly of my rainbow. And I thought this was easier instead of having all of those individual rainbow pieces to try and glue on my project. I just have one main piece that I can move around until I'm happy with placement. So I just use the tweezers and some lawnfawn liquid glue and butt those colors up right next to each other so there's no white space showing. And that lined up really well, but otherwise you could trim off any excess that might be overhanging. Next, we'll start working on the actual box card. So I'm taking all of those scored lines and I'm going to fold those over and just reinforce them with my bone folder. You will have the small flaps there on the side. That's where we're going to glue the box together. You can see how that's going to kind of line up next to each other. Now, one of those bigger flaps we're going to leave straight up. That is what's going to be our background to decorate. So the one piece, I am folding those over and reinforcing those with the bone folder. And then I'm just folding over the small one here. That big one we're going to leave, so that'll be the background for our card. Then I'll just bring those pieces in to show you how they're going to line up. So that biggest one is going on our back area, so we have a lot of room to decorate. And the other ones will go on the outside flaps of our card. Now we can actually work on decorating these pieces. I kept this pretty simple. You can do this however you wish. These are the pieces I'm actually going to stencil. You could die cut these from pattern paper too, but I'm going to add some clouds to this background to kind of go with my scene. I brought in my handmade stencil. I'm adding some low tack tape to the back of that, and that's just going to hold that in place while I do some light ink blending. I am bringing in tumbled glass distress oxide ink, which is just a really nice light blue. And I'm going to use a blender brush to apply those clouds. So I'm just going over real lightly over that cloud area. And then I can remove that, kind of shift that around, and add another layer of clouds. Now this bigger piece is, I did add 3 layers of clouds. The other pieces I only did 2. And then I'll continue doing that for all of the pieces. So I really liked being able to just kind of hold that in place lightly with that low tack tape. And I can just shift that around each side. So I'm just turning that handmade stencil. And I'm not doing a lot of blending on here as far as different colors. So you can definitely use this for future projects. You could also die cut these clouds from acetate. And that way you can wipe off the inking and save it for another use. And I just love this look of the light clouds in the background. That tumbled glass is such a perfect light blue. Once I have that all done, I'm actually going to take my rainbow and get that attached right away because I wanted to be able to trim off any excess that would overhang. So this is why I really liked being able to attach those pieces to just a whole base, my rainbow. It just helped being able to maneuver that how I wanted it placed on there, and just use the lawnfawn liquid glue to attach that and trim off that excess. Now before I actually get to assembling the card and the rest of the pieces, I want to add a sentiment. So this is the smaller rectangle that we'll be adding to the front. And I have one of those little fairies there. That's just there for placement. It's not attached just yet. And this sentiment is from a little sparkle. So I'll line those up in that area, pick that up at the door of my Misty, and then I'll go ahead and stamp that in the Lawnfawn Jet Black ink so it'll stand out really nice against our lightly ink blended background. And I'll give it just one more touch because I didn't press down hard enough. So I'll give that one more stamp. Now I can go ahead and attach my fairy. And you will notice in the end result, I did have an extra little one, so I attached that on the other side of the sentiment. Since this piece is ready, I'll add that to my front flap. And then I can start adding the rest of my cloud pieces to these panels. So these are the panels that are folded over. That way when somebody opens up the card and this box pops out, they're going to be able to see those decorated edges on our card. My rainbow is on the piece that is not folded over, so that's the back of our card. And then just bringing in my other box card piece, I can line up just to make sure it's even all the way around as far as the border. And I love the stitching that it leaves too. There's a light stitching border around those edges. Then I can bring in the lawnfawn double-sided tape. And I'm going to add those to the flaps. These are the two flaps that are going to connect our box. And I'm also going to add some adhesive to the flaps on my clouds too. So it's a little hard to see the score lines on the pixie dust cardstock, but they are there. So I just fold those over. And I'll go ahead and attach some of that double-sided tape to those as well. Then I'll go for both pieces. These are the inserts that are going to go inside our shadow box card pop-up. And then I can start putting my box together. So I removed the backing of that double-sided tape. I'm butting these up right next to each other, and then I can just fold that flap over. And that's going to form our box there. We have one more to do, but we're going to wait on that for just a moment. We want to be able to attach our clouds first because this is the easiest way to get those in there to make sure they line up perfectly and that our box folds up nicely in an envelope. So I'm going to remove the backing on just one of those sides. And we're going to line that up with the edge there on the left-hand side, right to the tippy top of the card. You can see that's how it's going to fold over. That's how we're going to line these up and seal it down. And I do have this kind of, you could see more towards the back of the card. It's not flush with the back. I want to leave some room. So I did the first one there and remove the backing, and I'll place that second insert, giving it a little space in between. And just push that down. You can use liquid glue if you wanted to. I really love using the lawnfawn double-sided tape because it is a really nice sticky tape. So I know it's going to hold up well. Then I can remove the backing on all three of my insert tabs. So on the two clouds, and then also on the left-hand side, my tab for the box as well. And then I can just fold this all over, and it's going to attach all three of those tabs. And this way I know my card is going to lay nice and flat in the envelope. And then once I give that a good push down, I can pop my box. You can see there are my cloud inserts. I'll fold back and forth a little bit and it lays perfectly. So this is a great way to attach those inserts. Once the box is put together, we can start adding in some of our elements. So the first one I'm going to do is the unicorn. I wasn't going to have anything special with this one, so I can just attach that right to the background there at the end of the rainbow, which I think just turned out super cute with the rainbow colored hair and the rainbow in the background. Then we can pull in our images that we had off on the side and we can start working on decorating the rest of the box. So I know most of these are going to go in the inside of the card, kind of popping up. I do have a few I wanted to add to the side panels. Like I said, I kept the side panels pretty simple. I didn't want to go too overboard, so I just took some of the smaller ones, added those with the liquid glue to the side of the panels. Just something cute and fun. And now for the inside, we are going to use some acetate. So I just took a piece of scrap acetate I had off on the side. I cut a bunch of really skinny strips into this acetate, kind of like fringe. And then just taking my scissors, I'm going to cut a straight line all the way across. And this is going to be what we are attaching our images to. So it looks like they're kind of floating in the sky. Now this is probably the tedious part of my entire project here, and that is using the double-sided tape, and I'm adding little pieces of it to the top of these acetate strips that I had cut. Now you can use some liquid glue if you wanted. I do recommend a strong adhesive if these are going to be In the inside of our box card, we want to make sure they're holding up really well. I just really like using the double-sided tape. And you could either rip that with your fingers or just use some scissors. And then I'm attaching different images to the top of those pieces. And I can start tucking them into my inserts. I'm also adding the double-sided tape to the bottom. I really, like I said, like the double-sided tape because I really don't have a lot of patience to wait for liquid glue. That's just me personally. I like to just get it done. And the double-sided tape is good for that. The liquid glue definitely will hold up, but you kind of have to hold it there for a few seconds to make sure that it's really stuck to the inserts and will dry. So I'm just adding some different elements here to those inserts. I love these cute little fairies kind of flying in the air with that rainbow in the background. Just a really super cute scene. And you can arrange these however you want. So now one last thing I wanted to show you is these box cards do fit in an envelope. So I grabbed an envelope that I had on hand and I put it inside so when the recipient gets it, they can just pull that out and this adorable scene is going to pop up, and this is great for having on display. So I really hope you enjoyed taking a look at these cute little fairies and the unicorn and creating a scalloped box card pop-up using that Shadow Box Rainbow add-on. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.